What, due to experience, do you know not to fuck with? Water. Rivers. Current. I'm a fairly good swimmer, and I wanted to swim in a river where the current seemed really tame. Boy was I wrong, just small moving body of water dragged my poor body like a leaf in the wind. Do not go swimming in, or jumping over, the street. Hella undercurrents, several coke gate? I'd what it is in English but like water carved potholes in rocks, slippery round boulders at the top, etc. The river seems narrow and innocent, but it's basically a big flat river turned sideways. There's bubbles all throughout the water, so apparently you cannot float or come up as you aren't buoyant anymore. There's some cool YouTube videos about it. I fell out of a raft in rapids back in summer 2018 and I still have vivid nightmares about that experience. I was wearing full flotation gear and followed the safety about how to position myself in the water, and it was terrifying. I thought I was going to die. Water is so heavy and so strong and it gives less than a shit about you. I knew water was dangerous before that, but that was a real lesson and there is nothing you can do if water takes you. Intuition. If something feels wrong, stop. It doesn't matter if it's stepping out onto a snow-covered slope, pulling up to a sketchy gas station, or putting too small of a piece of wood in a table router. Listen when your brain tells you this is a bad idea. I read an article that intuition is your subconscious brain picking up on cues that you are unaware of. After I read that article, I pay more attention to it. The gift of fear gets talked about a lot when gut feelings come up in this subreddit. It is a really good book. Hello. Ever wondered what you should never mess with? We've got a burning question for you. What, from experience, do you absolutely know not to mess with? Drop your hilarious stories in the comments below and let's have a laugh together. Subscribe for more quirky questions. Not immediately washing and disinfecting an open wound. My mom knew a guy that had to have his leg chopped off because a cut got infected. It was insane. Chop. The infection kept coming. Chop some more. He survived, but he lost a leg. Spent a long time in the hospital. My grandfather died from an infection after getting his toenails clipped. The caregiver accidentally nicked him. He is actually the reason that certain home health companies will not allow their aides to trim nails. Edit, no. There was no lawsuit. I don't remember the details because this was in January 1996. As a professional procrastinator, I've learned the hard way that not immediately washing an open wound is like throwing a party for bacteria. They really know how to crash it. Fridays. In the IT world we call it read-only Friday. Don't change anything. If I see another engineer on the team do a deploy on Friday, I set myself to do not disturb. We have informal Fridays, our high priority bug fixes only guideline. I wasn't paying attention to the day and my password expired on a Friday, so I changed it. By Monday, I hadn't a clue what it could have been. Outside a narrow window, us engineers can be pretty stupid. And this is why forced expiry on passwords can actually make things less secure. Having experienced the wrath of save changes button too many times, I've come to believe that Fridays and IT share a common enemy, the reckless urge to click. Heat. Your sanity is the first thing to go in heat stroke. You aren't even aware anything is wrong. You just know you're pissed, there's a weird buzzing sensation in your head/chest, and the world doesn't feel right. And then you're a zombie looking for anything to cool off with, and shortly after that, you're unconscious. It escalated too quickly for half a dozen rational adults to notice before exhaustion set in. Heat will kill you quicker than you think. When I had a heat stroke, my brain felt like a baked potato, like it literally felt like hot tin was in my head. All I remember was trying to rub ice cubes on my head and get into the fridge before my date rushed me to the hospital. And I was feeling this way for over 2 hours before I finally was taken in. Once had a fever that was bad enough that I had aphasia. Couldn't form words, or understand them. I had the remaining wisdom to crawl to the freezer, grab handfuls of ice, and ice down my carotid arteries. Jesus, that hurt. Eventually my brain cooled off enough that normal thoughts started happening again. I should have gone to the hospital. I went back to bed. Precipitation when it is cold outside. I got caught in a snowstorm in Shenandoah National Park in March, 2019. It was 50 in the valley, but I got 2 feet of snow on the top of the ridge. The forecast did not call for any precipitation that day. I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail and thought that a few flurries were nothing to worry about. I left a lean-to shelter that would have kept me dry and protected from the wind. I hiked less than 6 miles and was struggling to move forward because the snow was so deep. I was soaked to the bone, freezing cold, and beginning to lose fine muscle control in my fingers. The trail followed the side of a ridge and was not providing me any flat spaces to set up a tent. I eventually found a clearing where some power lines crossed the trail and struggled to get my tent erected despite the loss of feeling in my fingers. Once my tent was set up, I got my sleeping pad and sleeping bag deployed, got out of my wet clothes and crawled into the bag for an hour to warm up. I didn't even have a cell signal where I could let someone know my exact location and that I was okay. I had been in contact the previous evening, so my girlfriend knew my location to within a couple of miles. The snowstorm lasted all night and I had to spend a full 24 hours in the tent before the snow stopped. Ladders. I worked in and at a major trauma center, and the number of otherwise healthy people who came in paralyzed or soon to be dead from falling off ladders was eye-opening. My ex's dad was a healthy and still very active man who was about to turn 70. And I mean healthy, lived in a house on a mountain and spent his mornings hiking trails the average person half his age would get winded by. He had literally just retired. He and his wife were about to head out on a long vacation, so he was shutting down the house and noticed a small leak in one of their bathroom ceiling. Decided to check it out himself. He fell off the ladder and basically ping-ponged his skull the whole way down. Instantly a vegetable. Stayed that way for 8 months before passing. This made me an look up ladder injuries, and my takeaway is this: if you're not being paid to be on a ladder, pay someone to be on a ladder for you. Paid ladder guy here, take this person's advice. Paracetamol. In one of the dumbest moments of my life, I misread 50 milligrams when it was 500 milligrams. Took far too much. Long story short, almost a week in hospital. Drowsy driving. ETA, back in 2015, I had an incident where I fell asleep behind the wheel. It was in mid-August, and I had fallen asleep on my way home from work after a 16-hour night shift because my job messed up the schedule. We couldn't work more than 12 in a single shift. All I remember is I was driving, then I was waking up in a hospital 4 hours away from home. No clue where I was or what happened. I had suffered a major TBI and have been mentally different ever since. Had a pretty major concussion following the accident. It happened in the backroads of southern Idaho, and I was lucky to have come out of it with 0 broken bones. Everyone at the hospital was saying I was lucky to have survived. There were witnesses who saw the whole wreck, a couple high schoolers on their lunch. I read the police report and witness statements, and according to them, my car rolled 6.5 times, ended wheels up, and I was partially ejected, laying half in and half out of the car through the window. My seatbelt buckle had broken as the car was coming to rest. Wasn't there a test people did where someone who had double the legal limit was still a better driver than someone who didn't sleep for 25 hours? Mandolins. The kitchen gadget's not instrument. They sell gloves to wear while using these that keep you from slicing your fingertips off. Really helpful. Oh yes, I've used them. But it's always that just need 2 slices, so I don't need a cutting glove that gets you. Lost most of my thumbprint to the same, I just need 1 slice. What could go wrong? I'll be super careful, CK. I've come to realize that mandolins, the kitchen gadgets, not the instrument, have an uncanny ability to turn vegetables into an art installation, on the ceiling. My health. Getting older, you rediscover all those old hurts. When I was 20, I hyperextended both elbows playing volleyball. 15 years later, my elbows started aching in the winter frown. Also my teeth. It falls under health, but not everyone thinks about the dentist when they think about health. If you are reading this, please floss. It's a small thing that can make a huge difference later. Trust me. I have started flossing daily, late 30s, and every night I'm like, WTF, wasn't I doing this my whole life? The shit that comes out sure explains all my cavities. Yup. I really started giving a shit about flossing when I went to the dentist and they told me I had 7 cavities. I said, how can I have 7? I brush twice a day and use mouthwash. To my surprise, all my cavities were between my teeth. That sucked. Now I floss. Never trust a trench or a hole over your shoulders deep. You will die a horrible death. Yes, at the beach too. I think the rule is belly deep. Any higher and the dirt or whatever falling in can crush your lungs and make it impossible to breathe. Beach patrol at the beaches we go to say no higher than the knee of the shortest person in your group. Happened to a family I knew. Family was at the beach, playing in the sand. Some of the older kids dug a large hole in the sand. Youngest kid, 6 years old, starts playing in the hole and it collapsed in on him. They couldn't get to him in time and he died.